Dumilang, Saniwanani, hello everyone. It's Helen here, or as you can call me, Mama H, and we are therefore involved with life sciences. At the moment, we're focusing on population ecology, and today the focus of our investigation is into interactions in the environment. Now, let's have a look at a question. We know that ecology is the study of interactions in an ecosystem, but when we talk about interactions, what kinds of interactions are there that exist between members not only of the same species, but between members of different species? So it's all very well forming a definition and saying ecology is the study of interactions in an environment, but what are these interactions? And that is what we're going to be looking at in this lesson. So let's have a look at our concept map. We can tick off quite a few sections from previous lessons, and this is where we're focusing today. Interactions in the environment. So let's break down that broad topic of interactions in the environment. What smaller topics are we going to look at? Well, we're going to be looking at something called predation, competition, specialization, and symbiosis. So, are you ready for our keywords? Remember that the keywords are useless if just thrown at you as definitions. Rather, let's learn about them in context. But a great way of learning about them is also to put them into a little book or into a glossary where you can refer to term and definition when you're studying to really brush up on your facts. So the terms that we're looking at today, predator, prey, predation, we can see that those terms are going to kind of relate to each other. Something called dynamic equilibrium, competition, and even though it's spelt niche, we pronounce it niche, and these terms are linked together. Symbiosis, mutualism, parasitism, and commensalism. So we've got a full basket of goodies ahead. Let's not waste any time. Let's remind ourselves of what we already know. A population is a group of individuals of the same species. So there's our population of little meerkats that we've been talking about. We're focusing also in this particular lesson on communities. Remember that communities were a whole lot of different populations. So there we've got the lions and the zebra and the little meerkats. All of these communities living in the same area is also our focus today. So we're not only looking at populations, but also at how communities, which are different populations, how they all interact with each other. So in a natural habitat, different populations are going to depend on one another. Remember, some are going to eat others, and some are going to rely on others for other things as well that we're going to be exploring in this lesson. So these different populations, or our community, is going to be full of these wonderful interactions that we need to isolate. And it makes a lot of sense to kind of put these in different groups. And we're going to start off with our first group, or first kind of interaction, known as predation. So I think this little picture sums it up very nicely. In predation, we've got two organisms, and they're going to be from different populations. We're going to see a relationship between predators and prey. The predator is the one that does the hunting and the catching and the eating, and the prey, well, that is the population that does the running away or the swimming away or the trying to avoid being eaten action. Now, predator and prey populations are usually in what we call dynamic equilibrium. That sounds strange if you break up that term. Dynamic means to change, and equilibrium means to stay the same. So what on earth are we talking about when we think about dynamic equilibrium? Well, they are changing, that's the dynamic part, but they're going to balance each other out, which is where the equilibrium bit comes into play. Now, one of the most classic and famous examples of a predator-prey relationship is that between the lynx and the hare. Right? The lynx is indigenous to North America, and this is the little snowshoe hare, where we see that that is the population that is the prey population. So what is the relationship between these two organisms? Well, if you look at this graph, you can see that here on this axis we've got the number of animals in the population. On our x-axis we've got over the years, and in the green we're showing the hare, and in the purple we're showing the population of lynx. So let's start off following the hare. We can see that the hare population increased, and just behind it the lynx population was increasing. More hares, more food for the lynx. That means that food is not limiting, so the lynx population will grow. But then we start to see something interesting happening to the hare population. It drops. Why? Because the lynx population is becoming too large. In other words, there's too many predators and not enough prey species. We're seeing then, after a while, our predator population dropping and our prey population, wow, skyrocketing, because no predators, free for all. We are so happy that the lynx population is dying off. But as that hare population starts increasing, the lynx population also starts increasing. And so we can see that there are these fluctuations and there are time lags. We'll see that the prey population peaks first and the predator population peaks later. And this is simply because our predator and prey populations are adapted to each other. They have certain adaptations that will allow them to catch prey or to evade predators. So the idea of dynamic equilibrium means that constantly numbers are changing. But if we had to take an average, we'll see that these two populations are in balance. They are keeping a control on each other, which is very, very useful. And if we see our link to our lesson on growth curves, we're seeing, are we seeing the J-shaped exponential, or are we seeing an S-shape? Well, we're clearly seeing repeated J-shaped graphs going on here. We're seeing what we call boom and busts. We're seeing a population increasing, but then something else is bringing it under control, so the population decreases. So we're seeing an exponential kind of growth curve that is increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing again over many, many periods of time. And this is typical of an interaction between a predator and a prey. We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we're going to look at our next example of an interaction in the environment, and that is competition.